futuristic novel by Aldous Huxley, first published in 1932. Bernard Marx is an alpha who is different from his fellow alphas. He is slightly different size, and he is in love with this beta girl, Lenina Crown, and one day he asks her on a trip to go to New Mexico, where they visit the Savage Reservation. In here they meet Linda and John, and Linda is a former beta who got lost on a trip to the reservation, and while she was lost she discovered that she was pregnant, so she couldn't return. She was afraid to return to the new world out of shame, and it is highly shameful. So Lenina and Bernard, they bring Linda and John back to London, and here John, being a naturally born son, becomes a sensation. One day Linda dies at a local hospital, and in desperation of losing his mother, John goes mad and starts to destroy a batch of Soma, which is a drug, for the Delta group. And after this incident, he is moved to a lighthouse where he is totally distant from the new world. And unfortunately, one day he is discovered by some of the locals who come, and he's again a center of attention. And one day reporters come to his house, but they find his body hanging in the lighthouse, and thus ends the Brave New World. And Brave New World is a dystopia, describing what would happen if the world was living in eternal happiness, with no pain or no sorrow. The novel highlights subjects such as lust for the lust for a carefree life, where the only worry is where you should take your date that evening. The life of the alpha and beta sound, if you ask me, immensely boring. All the things we appreciate in life, such as culture and knowledge and passion and skills and love, are despised in the New World. And Huxley writes Brave New World as kind of a warning, and the moral of the story would be that you've got to take the sweet with the sour. If you want happiness, you've got to have unhappiness, and there's no love without loss, and there's no passion without love and happiness. It takes place in London, and the year is 632 after Ford. That would be year 2540 in our calendar, and the world is nothing like today. Concepts like family and religion, monogamy and cultural knowledge has been completely modified. Children are produced in hatcheries with different physiques according to what caste you're born into. It goes from alpha to epsilon, alpha and beta being the smartest and most well-developed, and delta to epsilon being born as dwarves and other lower standing varies of mankind, and being produced as nothing but workers. We have two main characters, Bernard Marx, who is a misfit in a world where there are no room for flaws, which leads to Bernard's biggest flaw of all, his constant searching for social acceptance. In the start, we sympathize with Bernard. He has feelings that we don't hear from the other alphas. He is more caring, as we hear. He wants more from Lenina than just sex. And we hear that in an episode where he overhears two men talking about how they want Lenina, and he thinks to himself, talking about her as though she were a bit of meat. Bernard ground his teeth. Have her here, have her there, like mutton, degrading her to so much mutton. And at this point we hear that he wants love from Lenina and doesn't just want to use her for the night. We also get that he is thoughtful and has these speculations about the system. In a date he goes on with Lenina, he says, I want to look at the sea in peace. One can't even look with that beastly noise going on. But it's lovely, and I don't want to look, says Lenina. But I do, he insisted. It makes me feel as though, he hesitated, searching for words with which to express himself. As though I were more me, if you see what I mean. More on my own, not so completely a part of something else. Not just a cell in a social body. But later on, this sympathy, it kind of goes away when, for example, he brings Linda and Bernard, he seizes the chance to get some thunder, and brings them back to the New World on only selfish reasons. And after this Soma incident, he is sent off to an island where people who has gotten too self-conscious goes. Then we have John the Savage, and John the Savage is brought into a world where he comes to find out what he values the most in life, the right to be alone and the right to be unhappy. John falls in love with Lenina the first time he sees her, and John needs to prove his love to her, to show his devotion in some way, and Lenina, not at all being used to this kind of love, the concept of love, doesn't get where he wants to go, so it ends rather tragically between the two. Sorry. John comes to loathe the new world he is being raised, where he has learned to read in the complete works of Shakespeare. So he knows culture and he knows love from these stories, and the New World is nothing like that. In a passage where he talks to the world controller of the Eastern Europe, we hear him talk about the New World. But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. In fact, said Mustapha Mond, you're claiming the right to be unhappy? All right then, said the Savage defiantly. I'm claiming the right to be unhappy. Oh, when John is moved out to the lighthouse, to empathize his humanity and to distance himself from these animals in the New World, he starts to hurt himself he begins with this masochist behavior. He whips himself and starves himself, but it comes to that he commits suicide, and some would say that it would be the ultimate suffering, and some would say that it would be the ultimate end to suffering. So it ends rather tragically for John. And the title, Brave New World, is what John expresses about the world state. It's a reference to Shakespeare's The Tempest, where the daughter Miranda claims her love for the Brave New World when she sees the first man besides her father. And it's also what John says when he sees Lenina and is just stunned with what beauty the New World could bring. And this is the first of many Shakespeare references. Alright, that was my analysis. I would really recommend this book. I'm sorry if I have spoiled too much. Yes, see you.